Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Justice's Waiting Room, a daily live podcast where we discuss news and politics. I am your host. My name is Jared. Welcome. We are live on YouTube and Twitch. Twitch, say hi to YouTube. YouTube, say hi to Twitch. It's Monday. Go kick its ass. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. Good morning to my beautiful wife, Taylor. Is that Debs? Hey, good morning. First thing off rip, I'm wearing this hat. I'm pissed. Uh, I promise I don't want to die. I don't want to kill myself, no matter how hard things get. A lot of people give circumstances out of their control far too much agency, and people are fallible and fickle, and people are fucking awful. And so I can totally understand why someone would even have the thoughts that they don't want to be here anymore. But that doesn't make like suicide okay. One of the things that I said early on in the show, there are no better days without you. Um, you killing yourself, it might appear like a solution for you, but it is just the beginning of problems for other people. And if you've ever felt very small and insignificant, um, unaliving yourself makes you consequentially so. Um, and obviously, again, is just the beginning of problems for a whole lot of other people. And one of the ways that we can combat suicide amongst our veterans is to properly mourn our fallen. Um, Specialist Sarah Beckstrom was murdered, and there should be flags at half mast for that, and there aren't. There were flags that had a half mast for Charlie Kirk, but there are not for Sarah Beckstrom. I think if you want to curb veteran suicide, maybe we give veterans maybe just an ounce, service members just an ounce of respect, especially. Um, Now, again, I don't agree with the deployment of the National Guard to Washington, D.C. I want to point out that Sarah agreed to stay even though she thought the deployment was unnecessary, okay, because they needed volunteers. Again, her name was searched in Israel before she died, and the media is calling it a targeted killing. And the person that did it worked with the CIA for 10 years. A report came in last night that said they were radicalized in the United States. And I had said on our show, yeah, can you imagine working with the U.S. Army and the CIA for over a decade and then moving to the United States and checks notes, has 5 kids? He works for Amazon and Amazon Flex. No wonder he didn't want to be here. You know what I'm saying? No wonder he got radicalized. Think about having to support a wife and 5 children on the money you can make at Amazon and Amazon Flex. In oh by the way, Washington State, radicalized. There are large militias in Washington, in Utah, in Idaho, in the Dakotas. Gun nuts. Think about it. Access to information. Targeted killing. That means he knew they were there. He knew who he was engaging. The killer. Hmm? I think they were due to be there through the. I don't remember. I thought they were supposed to be there for like a few more days. They were like supposed to be out by the end of the month or some shit like that. Again, I'm not sympathizing with the fact that they were deployed to Washington D.C. Shouldn't have been there. The girl that died volunteered to stay because they needed people to stay for the whole time, right? You gotta have enough people, and it was a targeted killing. So it makes me think like the shooter knew who those people were and they'd worked together prior. But no, but no flags at half mast is even more suspect. Wouldn't you agree? It would be less suspect if this regime mourned her at all. I hope I'm making sense. If this regime had mourned her at all, yeah, not empathizing with the fact that they were there. I'm empathizing that Chuck's notes should not have died. Should not have been murder balled. Also should not have been there. Those those things can be true. Okay. So it looks like Donald Trump trying to oust Maduro without going to war. You can save yourself and those closest to you, but you must leave the country now, Trump reportedly said, offering safe passage for Maduro, his wife, and son only if he agreed to resign right away. Oh shit. Hong Kong is reeling from one of the worst disasters in its modern history as the death toll from the devastating blaze at Wong Fuck Quarter State, it really is Wong Fuck. I'm not making this up. Only 20 R80 and E4. Clearly, she was kicking ass and taking names. Um, the death toll is now 151 people have died in all them building fires in Hong Kong. Police have announced a widening criminal investigation arresting 13 individuals on suspicion of manslaughter. By the way, it's only 151 people. There's going to be people that's in Hong Kong. Like, why the fuck do we care about this? It is the deadliest fire in Hong Kong in since 1948. So like 77 years have passed since the last time they had a fire this deadly. 40 people remain missing. It's a crazy situation. Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Paris for talks with Macron. Yeah. Wong fuck. President of the National Assembly met with the relatives of victims of extrajudicial executions in the Caribbean. Venezuela news reporting. President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, reported this Sunday that he held a meeting with the families of the Venezuelans killed by U.S. military forces in the Caribbean Sea, events which he described as extrajudicial executions. Rodriguez explained that the meeting took place in his office and that the identities of the family members were kept confidential because they received threats trying to prevent the facts from being clarified. Well, it sounds like they cut corners. Um, the Netherlands has announced F-16 ammunition, air defenses, $290 million package to Ukraine. So maybe not the U.S. Russia faces fast growing Military Watch magazine. The Estonian army has received a new batch of South Korean K9 Thunder 155mm self-propelled howitzers as parts of efforts to expand the service's long-range targeting capabilities. The country's defense ministry reported regarding the procurement. The newly arrived K9 Thunder howitzers reflect our long-term commitment to readiness. Hell yeah. Bringing the pain. By the way, not my dogs. They're asleep in the bed. I started checking in the morning before I go live. The way I don't have to think about it anymore. It is far too cold, and there's snow on the ground for them dogs to be outside very long. The EU tells Trump you cannot pardon Putin for war crimes in Ukraine. Any move to wipe the slate clean for Russia in a peace deal would be a historic mistake of huge proportions. So clearly, Donald Trump is pushing the EU to wipe the slate clean for Vladimir Putin. What a piece of shit, bro. Morocco and Spain set for 13th high-level meeting. The last summit between Morocco and Spain in 2023 discussed border management, security coordination, and economic exchanges. This is, again, like strengthening of ties. Somebody said it snowed in Indiana? Yeah, we got a little dusting here in Indy. See, something that people are going to have to understand at some point. I live on the east side of Indianapolis and all the weather misses us. Northern Indiana's getting anywhere from like 6 inches to a foot of snow. We got nothing comparatively. Nothing. Authorities say netting on the buildings is what caused them to catch on fire. Unsafe netting. I just hope somebody gets their dogs inside. This shit tilts the shit out of me. Floods in Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand leave close to 1,000 dead. Ditwa Senyan Kodo. Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. Wow, and the paths of these storms are crazy. It's a pretty cool article, all considering. Or graphic. Australia is tracking the Chinese Navy flotilla in the Philippine Sea. Oh, remember how we learned about the Shahed drones? They're jet-powered drones. It's basically like a rocket with wings. We'd said it's kind of like a dumb, kind of dumb, because any investment in anything, especially small, that has like a cost, if a drone could just take that down, you're wasting your money. So here's the Ukrainian interceptor drone taking down a Shahed UAV. They'd been using propeller driven, and they've become increasingly common. They've been using Patriot drones, fighter jets. The jet propelled Garin 3, sorry. The Shahed is propeller driven, the Garin is jet driven. But they're taking those down with simple drones. And it shows a sort of change in the battlefield where Russia is still behind the curve. They're thinking, well, they're gonna have to think about how to move without fucking up gas or oil. They're fucked. I mean, everything's gonna have to become solar powered. You know what I mean? Effectively, they're not gonna be able to move. That was one of the reasons I'd heard why China hadn't invaded other countries, is they didn't actually have the oil to move other shit. Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of officials would have resigned, but he knows he's not corrupt, and so he's like, corruption probe. Everybody but me. I give a shit. Replace them all. Like, I got a job to do. Now, notice the United States has not announced that they're sending anyone to help the people in Sri Lanka and Thailand, right? U.S. has not announced that. They're activating their militaries in Sri Lanka and Indonesia. Venezuela calls on its. You're saying Russia is Russiaing. Yes. Like, think about this. Just think about this. In the last, like, well, I mean, just year. We basically been doing this show about a year, and this whole time we've been following the war in Ukraine, and we've been saying like, yo, Russia, Ukraine has given Russia all kinds of trouble with simple drones. Why the fuck would you develop a drone that has more horsepower? You'd want to go cheaper. They're all fast, But jet powered, propeller driven, these giant fucking. It looks like a pair of wings with a dick. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's because they're trying to make an industry out of it. And I know, I just did all that to say fucking nothing. They're trying to sell these Shahed drones and these Garin 3s, and they're trash. Because a simple drone could just take that out. Which is great. Everybody ran out and bought their guns for self defense, right? The world's biggest arms producers increased revenue by 6%. Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. 30 of the 39 US companies in the top 100, including Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics, posted increases. Their combined revenue was up 3.8% at $334 billion. Oh, shit. 23 of 26 companies in Europe, excluding Russia, saw their arms revenue increase as the continent boosted spending. Their aggregate income rose by 13%. So keep this in mind. And I'm just, hey, if this pisses you off, it had better, but not me, not at me. The problem in the United States is that $334 billion probably doesn't factor in all the government subsidy they received. And if they hadn't received all those government subsidies, I bet you they'd have made more money. Checks notes, look at Europe. And that's because people actually want to do business with those companies instead of the United States. 3.8% to 13%. 10% is a big difference. hmm I bet you they'd make more money if they were detached from the government. The last big industry. So keep in mind, three companies in the United States, or 20, what is it, 30 of 30 something? 30 of 39 companies in the top 100 posted increases. Their combined revenue was up $334 billion. So 30, I'm trying to think, 30, they they basically each made a little over $10 billion in profit last year. Each of 30 companies, right? 3 3 billion. 30 companies posted $34 billion in earnings. Sorry, math. It'll bog you down. Anyway, BBC evidence suggests that World War I toxic compound has been sprayed on Georgian protesters. Georgia authorities used a World War I area chemical to quell anti government protesters last year. Kamite. CS gas was used as a replacement for Kamite, but Kamite has significant causes significant medical issues. Oh, and I saw that they're trying to say consumers spent more than ever on Black Friday. And what did we learn? The amount of money that the companies bring in is not relevant. Why? Because prices increased. So amount of money is not a good marker for how Black Friday went. What I saw with my own eyeballs that I'm like, hell yeah. The average number of items per person went down by 2 units, which is a fuckload, and the average cost per unit rose. And again, one of the great thing about economics is we're talking about units, meaning we're not talking about TVs, we're not talking about PS5s, we're talking about everything. On Black Friday, the real numbers are because people are going to point to how much money was made, right? That's not a good indicator. What is a good indicator? How much were they shopping? How many items did they buy? What was the average price per item? And the average item per transaction was down, and the average price per item was up. So this means that the increase in spending is due to increase in prices and not more people shopping. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. This is how math works. There are better indicators than overall how much money made. Marco Rubio making sure that his handlers have a hand in the peace that are trying to negotiate in Russia and Ukraine. They are cucks for Russia, huh? Cucks for despots. Anyway, 17 Koreans arrested in Cambodia in joint crackdown on no-show scam ring. No-show fraud scam ring. Marco Rubio, the bottom. Kazakhstan tells you. Alright, alright. This shit's funny to me. Kazakhstan has told Ukraine on Sunday to stop attacking the Black Sea terminal of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which handles more than 1% of global oil, after a major drone attack halted exports and seriously damaged loading infrastructure. The CPC, which includes Russian, Kazakh, and U.S. shareholders. Oh, there's the bad guys. Squint said foot traffic was way down at the local big box stores and malls by them in Dallas. Ooh, ooh, the U.S. Donald Trump's gonna increase pressure on Zelensky next week. Ooh, just telegraphing fucking everything. Fuck you. Oh yeah, it's the same. Here's an article from Pravda, who we've been following. Ooh. I understood that reference. Private U.S. Russia plan for Ukraine is like Nord Stream, but times 100. I was in the next big town near me on Friday and it looked like a quieter Friday than I've seen in years. My wife and I did no such leaving of our house. I watched rivalry weekend college football. I watched IU Purdue on Friday, Miami Pitt, Vandy Tennessee, and then went to bed on Saturday. And then yesterday I watched the fucking Colts lose, and then I forget. I was probably cashing out during that bullshit too. The Spaniards are anti-government protest. Good. God, what is the Pope doing going to Lebanon and shit? Jesus. You know, it's a matter of time before they get a Pope killed. Yeah, I wasn't gonna do shit anyway, but condemned violence in the name of religion. Okay, so the Philippines is a flood prone country, and protesters are calling out officials for substandard, like, flood control. Somebody posted in the comments they have until December 19th for the files. That's fucking crazy. 78% of voters voted against the plan to tax the rich. As someone who is not an Aaron Rodgers fan, seeing him bleed is satisfying. He doubted the efficacy of vaccines. He broke his wrist in 3 spots. We have a new license plate with Israeli flag colors and Star David. You motherfuckers are weird. The Polish president canceled his meeting with Orban after Orban met with Putin. Swiss voters have rejected mandatory national service for women. Yeah, right. That's fucking crazy. The license plate thing, not the. How the fuck? We did this yesterday. Benjamin Netanyahu asking for a pardon in the middle of a corruption case. Can you even do that? I'm gonna start doing that when all the times I get sued. Top South Korean e-commerce firm Coupang apologizes over massive data breach. How long have we been going? 35 minutes? This is the weekend, y'all. Alright, so the French Foreign Minister Jean Noel Barrot says Vladimir Putin's going to have to accept a ceasefire deal or face new sanctions. Yeah. Here's a Syrian foreign minister saying Israel's deadly incursion in South Korea was a war crime. Remember, in my opinion, Russia, Russia, Israel, and the United States are all lashing out over these Epstein files. It feels like every day has been an escalation upon the prior, and it's all meant to distract you from the Epstein files. This is dangerous. North Korea's regime has transformed former royal residences and civilian airports into launch platforms for intercontinental ballistic missiles while defying international scrutiny. Yo. What? What? Oh yeah. It's clearly I don't understand what I do. I should go live chat instead of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit held October 31st and November 1st in South Korea. South Korea, 1 week. North Korea threatened the world with its flagrant demonstration of its military capabilities while blatantly disregarding the United States' repeated proposals for talks without any preconditions. Dang. Yo, one of the missile launch sites is a 9-hole golf course. See, golf courses are good for something. Yeah, I've talked about that. How yeah, last 2 days, how it's really weird that Sarah Beckstrom was searched in Israel days before her killing. And then, by the way, the person that killed Sarah Beckstrom worked with the army for a decade in Afghanistan and was a badge carrying CIA and was living in Washington State with his wife and 5 children working for Amazon and Amazon Flex until they were activated and went to Washington, D.C. to kill that staff sergeant and Sarah Beckstrom. Mm-hmm. That's called a targeted killing. I'm guessing um, Mossad. Same people that killed Charlie Kirk. Hmm. Oh yeah, I said I may have missed a couple episodes. Yeah. And again, North Korea getting kind of squirrely. I've heard dumber shit, but I've heard this for days now, and I'm just like, how? The U.S. is asking Lebanon to return an undetonated GBU 39 bomb, fearing it could reach Russia or China. I don't, I don't understand. Missiles come from the cups. Again, all we're talking about is a golf course becoming useful. So, all right. I think I'm done talking about world news. Okay. By the way, yeah, well, let's share the show and switch over to U.S. news and politics. Justice's Waiting Room, a daily podcast discussing news and politics, is live. Is live on Twitch and YouTube. Hashtag JWR. Yo, Twitter's trash. I gotta just be real honest with you. Yeah, me too. I don't know what the fuck happened in Stockton, California, but goddamn, y'all know how to fuck up a Sunday. There was a mass shooting at a fucking birthday party, y'all. 4 dead, 10 wounded, 3 children, 1 adult killed, 3 children killed. I'm gonna read this. Authorities in California appealed to the public for tips, cell phone video, witness accounts, even fucking rumors, as they searched Sunday for a suspect in the killing of 3 children and an adult during a mass shooting at a child's birthday party. Someone opened fire at a banquet hall in Stockton where 100 or more people had gathered. Detectives believe the gunfire continued outside and there may have been multiple shooters. The deceased ages 8, 9, 14, and 21. Children. 11 people wounded. Yeah. And here's the story. I shared it in our Discord yesterday, but I'm going to make sure. Reuters reporting National Guard shooting suspect radicalized in the U.S. And I want to take a moment, to pat myself on the back and say how unfortunate it is that I'm right, that it wasn't they came to the United States chasing the American dream and found out the fucking hard way. It is not, it ain't roses. I don't know how to explain it. Surrounded by a bunch of racist gun nuts. When you're the one that worked with the army, you're the CIA. And like I said, it all feels coordinated. Mossad. Rage bait named Word of the Year by Oxford. Here's the problem. Are you ready for my soliloquy against rage baiting? All of the people that you hate are either bots or foreign owned accounts, or they're the fucking idiot that fell for this shit. And I would just ask, if you're gonna rage bait, can you rage bait people that actually exist? Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Think about all that we could be doing if we stopped focusing on the small group of MAGA and instead focused on the massive group of other people that aren't MAGA. The Lithuanian airport, capital airport, is closing again over balloons in its airspace. 6-7 made it to category 2. A fucking high school kid came up with the 6-7 shit. It's so wild. White people fuck shit up. I'm just letting you know. We'll take something someone else does and we will ram that shit into the ground. It sucks. It's boring. It's not fun. Jeffrey Bostic has been sworn in as the second president of Barbados. In the website's called Nation News. Protesters arrested in New York City over possible ICE-related activity. They were observed blocking a van from coming out of the garage. All right, switch over to U.S. politics. And again, weekend slash early week, right? It's crazy. Minnesota government workers blame Waltz for massive fraud amid allegations against Somali community. What? Get fucked, Fox News. Hmm. I'm reading it. I'm just having a real hard time how this is Tim Waltz's fault. Okay, let me explain it and how I would explain it. Within the Somali community in Minnesota, a bunch of fraudulent businesses have popped up promising services to them and have raked in like millions of dollars. They're saying that Tim Waltz ignored them and did all kinds of illegal fucking shit, and you're just like, it's Fox News. But the persistence of fraud within a community of people is not like a governor's fault when um, that community makes up but a fraction of the people. We're talking about like 50 people in a community of millions. Not exactly connected to fucking Tim Waltz. So, oh, he going to jail. Those are called war crimes. Hey, with all these people stepping down, APAC over affordability. America's view of Israel sours. Yeah, there's a reason. Like I read it and I was like, why is Tim Waltz even named here? And if the U.S. ended all aid to Israel, they wouldn't be killing people in other countries. They wouldn't have the. MAGA's war on empathy was started by a woman. Allie Beth Stuckey weaponized her gender to sell the idea of a cold hearted Jesus. Oh, she's ugly. Thanks to Elon Musk, most Americans learned earlier this year that MAGA thinks empathy is evil. Cruelty isn't the problem. The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. That's what Elon Musk said on Joe Rogan's podcast in February. Okay? Fundamental Christian influencer Allie Beth Stuckey, who's ugly in the face. If you look at her in the face, she's ugly. That's why she's so mean. If I was ugly like that, I'd be mean too. Yep. Just the way it is. She doesn't look happy. She looks miserable. This is what miserable people do. Hmm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. FEMA workers have been reinstated. So don't you remember I said he gonna have to walk this all back? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you ever see like, oh, this person's a piece of shit, and then you're like, let's go look at their face. Oh, they're ugly as shit. Yeah, it makes sense how they also have dumb opinions, try to force their dumb views on everyone else because they're dumb looking. Go figure. Go figure. And by the way, instead of subscribing to all these people, uh, considering well, here's the thing about Pete Hegseth. What he's did are war crimes, uh, which would be tribal under the UCMJ, and the president can't pardon charges that you picked up from the UCMJ. Yeah. Everybody said pull up your bootstraps, and except for blue collar jobs are collapsing. An independent effort says AI is the secret to topple two-party power in Congress. Again, you don't want to use AI. It's not smart enough. The quiet US pivot to Latin America. It's all about money. Yeah, Heritage Foundation's falling apart. Hell yes. Please let these be your candidates. Remember how I told you after Trump, Republicans have fucking nothing? Remember how I've told you this over and over that this is about surviving until Donald Trump dies? Because it can all that was going to happen to Donald Trump that should have happened when he was alive can just happen when he dies. You can just get charged posthumously. It's no skin off you and I's back. If fucking Donald Trump's just dead, he's just dead. DED dead. Okay? But they're thinking about running JD Vance, Trump Jr., or Ron DeSantis in 2028. They ain't winning with none of that shit. That flaccid white boy shit. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Teen GOP activist Jaquan Stembridge step down, step down. Black history has the power to ignite movements. That's why the right fears it. One of the things that I'll carry with me forever, I coached inner city high school football. I wanted to coach the kids that had nothing and had no one. And I wanted to find out what the fuck was really going on. And a lot of people talk about destroying public education, and we don't talk about what they're replacing it with. Charter schools. I coached high school football at Purdue Polytechnic North High School. By the way, Purdue Poly just won a state title, the other Purdue Poly, the South Campus, in football. Just won a state title in football. Not me personally. And one of the things that I take away from that experience, other than like I'm a badass coach, would have been a great teacher or coach, whatever. I took away that not only was I right, like they don't give a fuck about these kids at all. Public schools, not only do they have better participation, right? They have better support. Like a public school, they have in Indiana, they have to abide by IHSAA rules, which, for example, say if a kid shows up to school an hour or more before it starts, you got to feed them breakfast. They didn't have breakfast. I had to feed them myself, like the Black Panthers. Um, the rules also say if the kids are at the school 2.5 hours after school ends, you got to feed them. Now, we fed them the best we could. The school put together a food pantry for the kids, and they didn't even have a good way of getting it to them, getting the food to them. Like I said, one of my kids, I found out he wasn't eating. I sent him to the food pantry. They sent him home with 2 loaves of bread and peanut butter and jelly. He hid them in his room and ate really good for a few weeks. And I asked, why did you hide peanut butter and jelly and bread in your room? And he said, because everybody else would have just taken it and eaten it if I didn't. He wanted to be Ray Lewis. Loved to lift weights too. That kid's fucked, right? That kid will never know who that person is. You'd be lucky if he graduates high school. Because the purpose of charter schools is to reduce the student to an investment. About $7,000 a year. Things like football suddenly become not important. Robotics becomes important. Why? Because when you do really well in robotics, they pay money. And the school gets to stay afloat. And so keep in mind, like, that's what they're doing. They're destroying public schools. Which what that does is it fucks up the opportunity and the potential that a young black or Latino, or let's just say it, fucking poor, they're just watering down that opportunity for them even farther. And to the point where they come out of organized sports altogether. They'd rather just not have the program. Keep in mind, Purdue Polytechnic North decided they'd just rather not have a football program rather than have to keep up a field. And who did it have a negative impact on? The kids. The kids. Think about this, when a teacher doesn't have to coach a sport, their lifestyle improves. Their livelihood improves. A lot of teachers coach sports so they get paid at a respectable amount of money, right? And it was mostly black kids that are negatively impacted. Kids told me you either transfer to, Cathedral or Ben Davis, or you're left behind. And it's all for profit now. And the person that's like the president of the school, they're there to make money. Every dime they don't spend on these kids, they pocket. And think about that. That person doesn't. There's not a school owner in a public school, right? But it's the same thing at like a private school. They got an owner. They got somebody that's in charge who's there to make money. Hmm. Public school forever. I went to public school. I went to a private elementary, but I went to public middle and high school. Former USAID employees keep dismantled agency's life work afloat. By the way, they're saying Donald Trump's fading fast. Donald Trump could not tell you where he had his MRI. By the way, they went after Mark Kelly, a former Navy captain, former astronaut, because they're intimidated by him. Hey, by the way, if you live in Tennessee, tomorrow is a really important election. If you're eligible, you should go vote. Trump's approval rating takes a huge dip right before this hugely important election in Tennessee. Hey, buddy. Good morning, handsome man. That man came to say hello. Hey, big guy. Here's Mike Turner. He's a Republican. He's saying, hey, that second strike on that boat was an illegal act. Hmm. It was an illegal act to um, shoot the people on the boat anyway, but it's definitely illegal when you order them to go back and finish them off. And again, you gotta really question the validity of the claim. Now that I'm seeing that Christy Nome is the one that's saying that he was radicalized since he's been here. Yeah, Edmund Kemper. By the way, we thought it was bad when Donald Trump called Tim Waltz retarded, but he doubled down on that shit. Bruce straight up will eat everyone's food. Tell me this isn't real. A teenager redrew the Alabama voting map and now it's state law. Read that shit. Yeah, Gabby Gifford. At best, a war crime. Do you understand? If I were president, I would legitimize the ICC immediately. Donald Trump has commuted the prison sentence for former private equity executive David Gentile. Straight to jail. Oh, you know what's fucking crazy about life? So I worked for a company here in Indianapolis called Defenders. Okay, Defender Direct. They had to change their names. You'll find out why. What's important about Defender Direct is that Defenders had a nationwide contract to sell and install ADT home security systems. ADT was acquired, so you have to follow me, in 2017 by Apollo Global Management. Now, you're going to be like, Jared, how is Apollo Global Management relevant to right now? The CEO of Apollo Global Management was really close with Jeffrey Epstein. Once Apollo Global Management purchased ADT, my company stopped giving a fuck about fraud. Whether it was false advertising, whether it was wire fraud committed over the phone. And I went to my supervisor. I sat in front of HR 12 times. I recorded those conversations. I sent myself all the emails with the evidence from all the times that I was like, hey, this person fucking lied and took money over the phone. And Defenders got shit on one Super Bowl at halftime, like a half hour special from Brad Edwards out of CBS Chicago. Did this absolute masterful fucking takedown of Defenders committing wire fraud and false advertising, and that happened on Super Bowl Sunday. On Thursday of the next week, Brad Edwards was in my living room. People that I worked with told Brad Edwards, hey, Jared Malot's a whistleblower. He's been reporting fraud since 2017 for about a year. After Apollo Global Management purchased ADT, they stopped caring about fraud and said we're going to false advertise and nothing ever going to happen. Now, knowing all that we know, knowing that Jeffrey Epstein was close with the CEO of Apollo Global Management, where do you think he got that idea? That we can commit wire fraud and false advertising and no one will ever care? Now, my expose on the company I worked for that I did with Brad Edwards, we never actually put that out because a lot of people got fired, and the person that owned Defenders got bought out. And I want to point this out. It was $1 billion company. So I worked for a local business, $1 billion entity. How much do you think they bought out the original CEO for? How much do you think they gave him? $1 billion. He built $1 billion company. He got exposed for fraud and shit. How much do you actually think he got paid? 20 million. I also got my call center director fired for being racist before I got fired, and I got fired for communicating with the media, taking pictures and shit, basically collecting evidence. I really wish my wife was here to see that. We're just like, holy shit, yeah, that's true. That is real. Donald Trump said he'll absolutely denaturalize Americans. hmm Here's an article from Bloomberg about how whites have lost white rural America. Well, I think one of the things that I've learned is that if you're going to be a politician, don't make promises that you can't keep and don't say things that you don't mean. Um, I think that, I'm not running for public office, but how long until we see someone run for public office that says, look at the rising cost of healthcare? I believe we should all just have universal healthcare. Look at the rising cost of rent. I think that your rent should be stabilized or reduced, or based on your income. Look at the rising cost of education. I think it's time for universal education. There are 30 million empty homes in the United States. 3 million, sorry. That's way too many. 3 million empty homes in the United States and less than a million homeless people. We could have all of that. And instead, we have global war and instability. And we could really have it everywhere. Everywhere on Earth, we could afford to have universal healthcare, education, income, and housing. And then I can imagine if you're anything but a cis white male, that you would really appreciate a political party or a politician who is just pro equality. Meaning that I'm not a bigot and I don't stand up for that shit and I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say, hey, that was racist. That was sexist. You're being a bigot. I'm going to call it out. And I'm going to try to hire and promote a diverse group of people to work with me. That's being pro equality, is not kicking the fucking ladder door out from under me and saying, har, 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 now that I'm an elected official, fuck it all. And none of what I campaign on means anything. And you know what's crazy is the UN backs me up. Just so you know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? Uh, there's like 20 something. Hold on. Ah, here it is. Here's the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the UN, by the way. Article 25. Everyone has a right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, medical care, and necessary social services. Say that 3 times fast, burp. And the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond our control. Food, clothing, housing, medical care. Huh. Oh. Article 26 that everyone has a right to education. Education shall be free, at least in elementary and fundamental stages. Higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. Just like to point you to UN Article 25 and 26. Yeah. So just understand, like, being a socialist, how I'm not a bigot. Oh, I'm pro union. What's the downside? So think about if you could just have like one politician ever that's like, I won't stand for bigotry and I'm not one. I'm pro union, join a fucking union. Everyone ought to have universal health care, education, income, and housing. And oh, by the way, the rule of law is not partisan. So it's not like your job stops because your homeboy got elected. Now you got to protect his ass. No, like if you fuck up, you should be held accountable. Hmm. Yeah, I imagine it'll all come out in due time. I have to imagine they're deathly afraid of legitimately like war. So I know everybody's like, why the fuck? Why isn't anybody talking about this shit? Why aren't they coming out? I think they're waiting until Donald Trump dies. And I honestly, I wonder how long it'll take after he dies. I mean, he's fading fast. You know what I'm saying? Play a little bit of Aerosmith, a little bit of Ether Rich. Check the weather and get out of here. I think it'll be a fun week. Yeah, I hear that. I hope everybody stays safe. Looks like there's still SEAL team members need to be charged, right? And what's more likely to happen instead is they write books and try to make themselves famous, run for public office, and holy shit! All right, there's rain in northwest United States, up in Washington State. There's also rain down near Houston, going into Louisiana. A little bit of spot of rain in the Gulf of Mexico and off the eastern seaboard. And I always say, like, I ain't no weatherman. I don't know how that rain off the eastern seaboard is going to interact with the eastern coast. So I just make sure to point it out. It looks like um, light snow in northern Idaho and western Montana. And then once you get into like southern Minnesota, eastern Nebraska, and Kansas and Oklahoma, there's not only like rain and snow and it's mixed, and that's not good, but it's looking like it's heading east. And so basically, if you live in Michigan, down through about halfway Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, into South Carolina. So it's a pretty big block of the United States. Like, keep your head on a swivel. There's a massive weather system moving. It looks like it's going to hit the north half of Illinois, the entirety of Indiana and Ohio, the northern half of Kentucky. Looks like West Virginia, Virginia, but like Pennsylvania, New York, are going to get snow on their own. Plus, there's this big weather system in the middle part of the U.S. that's taken up like 8 states. So, have a fantastic day. Try not to shoulder all of this. Yeah? And we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, stay warm, right? Yeah, I gotta walk the dogs now. I didn't walk them earlier. It's too cold.